Moving on to our reports, 7.1, interim road speed management plan. This report is looking at developing an interim speed management plan, and I welcome Susie to speak to the report.
I always forget what button to push, so I'm glad I've got it right. Thank you very much, Maureen, everybody. So this is our interim speed management plan that will be going out, hoping to go out to consultation later in this financial year. So it's all around safer speeds around schools, safer speeds around our urban and industrial fringes, where we've had growth and the rural speed limit's no longer appropriate, and safer speeds around our more densely populated active transport areas, so walking within the CBD, that kind of thing. We've got some side streets that currently sit still at 50 kilometres per hour, which is probably no longer appropriate. So the purpose of the report is working through the changes to the speed management rule change, which went through in 2022. And so this is response to that. There's a further report going to Council regarding our bylaws next week. So this is the legal function now for setting speed limits. So there's a requirement to do a full speed management plan, working with Canterbury throughout the Regional Land Transport Plan program. But the interim speed management plan gives us a chance to tidy up our speed limits in our urban areas and any other areas that are no longer appropriate. The focus is around schools, as has been indicated through both the government policy statement and the Speed Limit Setting Rule 2022 as being a focus of our country. And so you'll see there's a whole list of plans included within that, so starting point. So we've done some initial conversation with our school travel planners. We'll be working with the schools and also have had initial conversation engagement with Arawhenua, and are working with AECL on appropriate speed limits. So yeah, that's I suppose. I don't know, Andrew, have you got anything else I have missed adding there?
Have you got anything to add, Andrew?
No, well, basically it is a new environment, legislative requirement that we have to produce a speed management plan, and I must say that the process in the new rule is a lot easier than the previous process where we had to do it through bylaw. So, but the focus is on safety, and that's the reason we're doing this.
Thank you. Susie, I have a question. Do we currently have the resource to implement this activity right now, or are we better to wait until the regional plan is going? Because we have got the option to wait. Do we have the resource of staff to enable this at this current time?
So a lot of the plans have already been drawn up, so it's a case of tweaking. So yes, we do with external support. So we've been working with an external provider to help pull together the consultation document. We've taken some lessons learnt from the Ashburton process on what works and what doesn't work, and a fair bit of their content as well. So we're already working with our neighbours. So I think there's a bit of repetition that we're able to do, but also incorporate the Timaru feel to it. Of note is that there has been extra funding approved under the National Land Transport Program for implementation of signage, and obviously with the variable speed limits, so that's the ones that we have, 30 kilometres past schools when at school pick up and drop off time, 50, so that has been approved under the current NLTP. So if we were to wait for the management plan, the Canterbury management plan, we'd likely miss out on that funding opportunity. So it's a case of, yes, is some internal resource, but we'll be looking to a small amount of external resource to actually pull together the consultation document. Yeah.
Okay. And would we be using that external resource regardless if we decided on option 2?
Yes, we would be.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Mayor Barn.
Thank you. Look, I support option 1. I mean, we've been kicking this can down the road for a while, and it's been frustrating, obviously, and if there was an issue where speed was a factor in one of these zones, I don't think we'd be very happy with ourselves holding it up. So support option 1. My question is actually around the need to consult with AECL on this particular matter. So is that to do with just Arawhenua School only, or all schools? Because, I mean, we had a good discussion this morning around, and obviously there's cost involved, and I just question if this is going too far with what we need to consult with iwi on around speed limits, and there's a cost to general ratepayer, And I just think it's a step too far that we have to. So can you explain what we do need to do as far as our legal requirements? I understand the need to consult with iwi on certain things, but speed limits just seems a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, very good question. So under the speed limit setting rule 2022, we are required to consult with iwi prior to really going down into any detail, and then work through with detail as well. So it's a legal requirement to do so.
So the second question would be, what is the cost of having to consult under, obviously it sits legally that we have to, but what is the cost then in needing to do that?
At this stage, it's a little bit unknown. We have obviously had an initial meeting out at the marae Arowhenua, and also have made contact with AECL around forward. But yeah, at this stage, I don't have the cost, but could get back to the committee once that is known.
I would be interested because I do get the need on certain things, but I think this one, for me personally, is a step too far, and it should be challenged because it's adding cost across the country for ratepayers. I don't think there's a need to consult specifically with iwi on speed plan over and above general consultation with all, personally. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Bowen. Councillor Piddington.
Yes, if we go to page 23, so are we putting signage on every one of those streets, and do we really need all of those streets included? How do you come up with that? Because it just seems...
No, we wouldn't need signage on all of the streets. We'd create a speed zone, so you'd be able to have it at the entries and exits of the zone. And how we come up with it is around the active transport use into the schools. And I suppose in absence of a school travel plan, it's looking at the current usage of the network and how often people walk and cycle to their school. So it's about creating a fit-for-purpose school zone based on the ability for people to be able to, children to be able to safely walk and cycle and scooter if they want to their school.
I guess I get that, but if you don't have signage, how do I know as a driver that I should slow down when I turn into Kitchen Square?
So there'll be signage at the entrance. So it'll be, there'll be a school zone entrance 30 kilometres as you're getting in, so every approach. So it will be, I suppose there'll be a period of education that we have been initially talking with New Zealand Police around on how we're going to, once the implementation phase goes through of this, so working through educating drivers. Obviously there'll be a big, with the consultation will draw some attention, and then there'll be big introduction campaigns on when those speed limits are set and those signs are in place.
And sorry, I might have missed it. Is it 24 hours, 7 days a week, or making these schools year round?
Yeah, so can we bring up those maps that I've changed? So we've noted that there's already been a little bit of feedback in the media responding it, and probably a little bit of misunderstanding around the map. So if we bring up, I've just made some quick got some quick changes made to them. Interim, there we go. So you'll see there where we've got the proposed 30, so make it a bit more obvious in the maps that have been, or plans that have already been included in the report. So those proposed 30k speed limits will be, in red are the permanent. So generally speaking, they are, narrower street, lower volume, and there'll be infrastructure put in place over time to encourage that lower speed. Where the green goes through there on Selwyn Street, you'll note that is, it's got the variable speed limit, so that's the flashing signs that will be changed, and that's what the flashing signs look like. So basically, we'll be colour coding and developing those maps the plans a bit further as we work through the next steps of the process.
Thank you, Councillor Piddington. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Susie. Looks great. Just going to page 23, the one there for Craighead. And maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, but it looks there that the speed limits are not changing at all around Craighead Diocesan or Craighead Kindergarten. So are they going to just remain at 50 k's an hour, are they?
No, so that's the bit we've picked up on the way we created the maps. The Craighead itself is the 50k is outside of the zone, and the red is basically showing that there's going to be a
Oh, so all the
permanent
other,
speed.
all the other maps show a 30k.
Yeah,
right.
So yeah, it was one that we picked up that it's probably not entirely clear. So we'll flesh that out. So it's really being able to get that feedback early on before we pull together a consultation document. So yeah, we've made some changes.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Shannon.
Thank you, Susie. With regards to OPE College on page 32, we discussed the other week, is there the potential at exactly the same time to carry that 50 right through to Murray Street?
Yes, correct, there is, and that's one that we're pulling up further maps on at the moment. So we've probably got about a list of, so these are mainly around the schools and those urban fringes that we have already pulled together the plans for, but there's probably about another 18 areas where there's just some tweaking needed to reduce speed limits in those urban fringes to reflect the current use of the area. So we're working on those at the moment. So, and that will be, as per, recommendation, for the, there'll be the delegated authority for chair and deputy chair of infrastructure committee to review and sign off before we go out to public consultation, those plans.
Thank you. Councillor Pye.
Thank you. I just wanted to understand the process a little bit on how we came up with some of these areas, because if, like for example, the port, Peel Forest seems to go a long way west of the township. So is that just based on, here's an idea, put it out to the community, and so it's really important for the community to engage, or is this what the community want, and so this is what you're proposing, and see if there's any, pushback? I kind of want to understand that process, because that Peel Forest one especially seems like a long way past the actual community.
Yeah, so often it is based on feedback that we've already had from the community. The schools, not so much, because the schools is as a result of the government direction that we've had on that. But yes, for the likes of Peel Forest and Woodbury have been from consultation with the community in the past. Obviously, we might have changes. There's, we will be going out to the community boards as well throughout the process. But it will rely a little bit on the feedback from the community. But it generally has been, parts of the community have been requesting this, so we've pulled it together. Also in Peel Forest, we have created a shared path all the way out to Blandswood Road, and that will be extended further. So we're creating that environment where we've increased that active transport mode right adjacent to the road reserve, and that connection through into Blandswood, where you've got a lot of the walking tracks that people go and they come to visit us and go and walk on. So it's about creating those connections and safer environments for those.
Thank you. Any other councillors before yes, Councillor Scott.
Mine is similar to Councillor Pye. I felt that some of them were quite extreme, the length, and I presume that is because you've done a study on where the children are travelling from. But yeah, I suppose we just need to encourage that community consultation, because, like, for example, the one that's up Beaconsfield, is very long to be travelling 60 k's in the middle of nowhere. So I just would like to think that we will have good community consultation, because even the Pages Road one is extremely long as well, in the middle of an extremely long road. So some of them to me seem quite extreme. The town ones make sense, but the ones in our rural communities seem quite extreme in length.
Yeah, well, one of the issues we have is that, the rules are still fairly well defined on what speeds you can actually set in certain cases. So, it's either do this or not do it at all. Yeah, I do agree with you that some of the speed limits are a lot lower than they probably should be in some of those areas, particularly those rural areas, but unfortunately we're bound by the legislation.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Booth.
The government have just recently changed their rules and regulations, etc. Is that going to affect this?
It won't affect the interim speed management plan, which is probably again why I'd suggest we continue with going ahead with the interim speed management plan, because we've got a lot of outstanding requests from public and just a need to reduce speeds in some areas. It could potentially end up changing legislation again, which could impact the Canterbury or the regional speed management plans. We're not sure at the moment, because obviously the change was announced yesterday, so we haven't met as a group to find out what that's actually going to mean for us. Believe that it was more focused around state highways and reduction on speeds on state highways. So unsure at this stage, but yeah, would suggest that that we continue with the interim. And we've also got a point. I'll just find it. Sorry.
As of yesterday, government announced that they would, pull back, I guess, their speed limit reduction plan, and they're now going to only focus on 1% of the state highways, basically the worst areas. So basically, the road from Timaru to Christchurch is likely to remain 100k and not 80k. So.
Okay, is there any follow-up questions from councillors? Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, it was actually in town. Just the rationale behind Hay Street down at the port going down to 30 k's an hour. That seems to be incredibly slow. And what a reasonably, I mean, I'd expect people to slow down at the crossing and that sort of stuff, but certainly down Hay Street itself, 30 k's seems really, really low.
Yes, so Hayes Street at the crossing has been at request of Kiwi Rail, following the work that we've been doing for a long time now. I'm working with Kiwi Rail, meeting their objectives and requirements to upgrade the Heaton Street, Hayes Street rail crossing. So we've got a temporary 30 up there at the moment. So that's why we are turning that into a permanent 30.
Isn't the whole length of it?
No. At the moment, it is that section through to the crossing point. The next bit is working through with. We've got a lot of port operators that are requesting overweight permits, so heavier trucks in the port area, and we've had pushback through from New Zealand Police in regards to the safety of those trucks operating at those weights at those speeds within the port area. So we have been approving. Based on that feedback and in consultation with the operators, the overweight permit, but with at a reduced speed. You'll be fine that the actual operating speed of the likes of the port roads sits around that 30 to 40 kilometres anyway, with the turning movements that they need to do through there. They don't tend to haul through at 50 kilometres per hour. So it probably is more reflective of the actual speeds that they're travelling.
Thanks for the explanation.
Okay, so we'll go for a follow-up with Councillor Booth and we'll look at the recommendations.
There's one missing, which is the one at the top of the Bay Hill. What you said, you would think where there's a lot of public actually crossing and trying to cross the road, the Bay Hill and Stafford Street intersection, that would be the highest priority, actually. So is there anything on the horizon for that intersection?
So we're working closely with Waka Kotahi on their full speed management plan, which will be in conjunction with the regional speed management plan. Obviously, that intersection there is predominantly State Highway 78, which is a Waka Kotahi controlled network where they still set their speed limits. But yes, Bay Hill and Stafford Street could certainly be considered as reduction areas. But the actual intersection itself, we are a little bit restricted by Waka Kotahi's road that runs through there. We do push for change, so some of the ways that we do that are by instigating lower speed limits on the streets adjacent to and getting them to work in with us. So answer is yes, we could look at our local roads and continue to push on state highways.
Thank you. Okay, let's look at the recommendations. I feel comfortable we can do recommendations 1 through to 4. Mayor Bowen, are you happy to move that? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jackson. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Susie, for that report. I believe, Susie, you're staying with us for 7.2, road naming proposal of Brockfield Road, Timaru. So I'll take the report as read and you can speak to the report.
Yes, thank you very much. This report, we'll take it a bit as read, but just point out that the option we are recommending is the developers' third option. They are aware and okay with that. We have to obviously work within our road naming policy, but also within LIN's requirements. So the first two names that were suggested by the developer did not meet LIN's requirements due to reasons set out in the report, but basically that there are two similar names on the district already. So that's where we've come up with option 3.
Lovely.
The developer has come up with option 3.
Any questions, Councillors Mayor? Yes, Councillor Booth.
So basically, you can't have the word Brookfield twice, is that the issue?
Yes, correct, yeah. It could add confusion to people in mail delivery and emergency services.
No
It's very important when it comes to emergency services that, you know, you don't have confusing names because they're looking at these things very quickly, so.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
We all good? Mayor Bowen? Happy to, Councillor Burt? Oh, happy to second. Okay, so if there's no further questions, we've got to move on a second for the recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Susie. Okay, moving on to report 7.3 on page 49. So I'm going to welcome Michelle up, and Grant, are you coming up? Okay, so our third and final report is regarding text message communications for urgent water alerts, a new initiative to improve communication time of high priority public health water notifications. Take the report as read, and I'll let you speak to the report, Michelle.
Kia ora koutou, good morning. What I would like to do is do a demonstration with you all of how this will actually work, and then I'm happy to take questions after that. So for anyone that has brought their cell phone with them today, can I ask you please to switch that on? So I have just sent you a message now, which hopefully should come through.
Yep.
Mayor Bowen, have you received this message? No? Would you like to read it out, perhaps just for the benefit of others in the room that have not received it?
Yeah, happy to. Kia ora, you are now subscribed to Timaru District Water Scheme Alerts. For more information or to opt out, visit timaru.gov.nz. Michelle Bunt, Water Services Community Engagement Officer, with some contact details.
I just received the T of your last name and then Water Services Community and the signature.
Okay, we'll investigate what's going on there. Does anyone else?
Text.
I got the full message.
Yeah.
So Michelle, when there is a water notification, it will be more descriptive.
Absolutely.
You won't have to go and link onto the website to find out more information.
You will need to link onto the website, and the reason for that is you are restricted to a certain number of characters in your text message, and so we need to point people to somewhere else where they can find all the full details. So in the scenario of a boil water notice, it would be, Timawana customers, a boil water notice has been applied to your scheme. Please visit for more information.
Great, thank you.
We see this as another tool in the toolbox to basically communicate our water alerts or, to the various communities, so.
And it will not replace any other current ways of notifications either.
We're still.
It may minimise reliance on letters and things like that, but aside from that, it is proposed to keep all the other existing communications methods.
So it doesn't matter what water scheme you're on, it will be sent to everyone.
So what we are actually doing with the public is, so we have done some internal investigations of the cell phone numbers that we already hold within our databases, and we are populating those into water scheme specific groups. So if you are a ratepayer on Timawana, then you will be in the Timawana water scheme grouping, and we can actually break it down further. So for example, on Downlands, if we had an issue that only applied to, say, one particular zone, we can actually push a text message out to only those people that are connected to that particular subzone. And the reason we're able to do that is because of the work that we did last year, setting up our water scheme alert maps and breaking things down by subzones. So we're in a really good position now to actually move forward with this.
Great. Any questions for Michelle? Yes, Councillor Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I very much like this. From an elected member's point of view, I'd love to be part of every group within my ward, if you like.
Absolutely, yep, and that's very easy for us to do. When I have previously implemented a similar scheme at another council that I used to work at, and that was what we did. We often had all our elected members and members of the senior leadership team signed up to alerts for all schemes, just to give them that, and obviously our communications people, just to give them that alert of everything that's going on. Yeah, you'll often find that journalists will often subscribe to every list as well, to see what's going on, and that's to be expected.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Pye.
I just had a question about system to keep the database up current, to be honest, you know, where you've got changes of properties or people, but I guess
And
it's never going to be foolproof, but do you have something in there to keep it current?
Yeah, and look, that is a very real challenge with any database, and this is no different. We are working with Council's GIS team at the moment.
Mayor Bowen, excuse me, Mayor Bowen, please. Thank you.
One of the things that we are looking at is creating a opt-in form on our website for people whose contact details we do not currently hold to subscribe themselves. And that form will have a dual purpose. It will also enable people to opt out or update their details, and we are intending to integrate that with our name and address register and contact details system within council, so that there is one source of truth, and so that when we get feedback regarding this, that someone's changed their number or they've moved to a different supply, that updates across all council systems. But it is not foolproof, and it does rely on people keeping us up to date as well.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, did I read that if you opt out, you can never opt back in again? And how, like that?
Yeah,
sounds
so that
quite a problem. So when you go to opt out, will it send you something that's, you know, are you sure? Because you'll never be able to come back. You see,
Correct.
It seems like
Correct. And look, we're working with a lady at Spark nationally, so we're reconfirming some of these points with her, but certainly that is how it used to work. And so it's just actually being really clear with the communications when we advertise this scheme, and helping people understand that, yeah, you're more than welcome to opt out, but there are some consequences, and you may not find out things that you want to be kept in the loop with in the future. So consider that carefully. But one of the things that actually drives opt-outs is when you overutilize the system or you use it for non-urgent things. And so that is why we are being quite cautious around what we use it for. We really want it to be more for those public health, water safety things, rather than, reminder to get your frost plugs changed in winter, for example. There's other communications tools that we have for that are better suited towards that kind of thing.
Thank you. Councillor Puddington.
Yeah, look, seems like a great scheme. I just wonder, it would be helpful, not on this platform, but another one. Stephen is quite good at letting us know when something big is happening, and go to your emails. But, you know, just around, and I know it's run by ECAN, floods and civil defence, but if someone in the council is aware of something, you know, it might be sunshine and it's flooding at the Rangitata, some sort of system would be good to alert us to that.
That's a great point. And we in Drainage and Water are kind of proposing to be the guinea pigs for this service, but the intention is that this could then be applied to other things within council. Other councils use it for a variety of things. They use it for rubbish bin pick up and return things. They use it for calling staff into civil defence emergencies. I see no reason why it couldn't potentially be applied to giving the likes of yourselves a heads up around other particularly critical things. Yeah, I think we're saying we have a more probably pressing need for this in terms of the public safety of what we do. And so we are proposing to kind of get the system up and running and doing a lot of the legwork that then can have other benefits. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Hi, Michelle. People talking about using it for other purposes, but you did mention in your report about fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite important too, isn't it? That we don't overuse that resource and then put people off using it in the future, yeah?
Correct. So I think we need to decide in principle that this is for urgent notifications only, and then stick with that decision in terms of other things that we may apply it to in the future. So, for example, if a bridge washed out or something, obviously in that kind of scenario we would be able to tap into the actual civil defence system, which is a separate system. But for things like that, I don't think anyone's going to get upset if they get a message from us. But yeah, it is that those more advertising and promotional things, there is a real need to be quite mindful of that. But in terms of the likes of yourselves and sending yourselves updates, that is a conversation for you around what you would like to receive from council and whether this is the right tool for it.
Thank you. Mr Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just thought I'd speak to the civil defence component of that, Councillor Piddington's question, which was we did explore with Canterbury Group accessing the emergency messaging system that they have, where you give them the polygons of the affected area, and it sends out a forced message to all cell phones in that area. We do have access for that anything that constitutes a threat to people's well-being or health, but it has to reach a certain threshold. So for things that didn't reach that threshold, I think this opportunity here is appropriate. But for anything that steps into that area that might be considered civil defence emergency management, we've got that access to that system through Canterbury Group. And we can get out a message to a targeted community or area within about 30 minutes. So.
The extent of an event to use the civil defence emergency system would be, for instance, a boil water notice for Timaru. It's that sort of scale.
Anything more, councillors? Mayor? No? So the this is a receive a note on the report, so I'm happy to move that. If I've got a seconder. Thank you, Mayor Bowen. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Okay, that would be the end of Infrastructure Committee. Close the meeting at 10:52. Thank you.